Hello everybody, welcome to our herbarium video. My name's Ellie, I'm the Learning Officer here at Winterbourne House and Garden, and I've invited Henrietta down. Henrietta is our curator and she is going to help introduce us to the herbarium we have here. So Hen, first off, what is a herbarium?
Well, herbaria have been collected over hundreds of years, often by amateur botanists and people who were just enthusiasts who were collecting plant specimens. And herbaria are collections of preserved specimens of plants, which by institutions have been gathered together, and they are used for teaching purposes, they're used for research, and they were really important before the days of digitisation, before the days of photography, when this really was the only way that you could preserve information about plants.
I suppose the obvious first question is, why are we wearing masks and gloves?
Well, in the past, herbarium specimens were often treated with harmful chemicals, mercuric chloride being the main example. These chemicals were used because they protected the specimens from insects. But what people didn't necessarily realise at the time was that they can be harmful to humans as well. So what we have to do if we're working with herbarium specimens is just to wear masks and gloves, so that if there are any particles of mercuric chloride on the pages, that they're not going to cause us any health problems. And afterwards it's always a good idea to wash your hands as well.
Hen, what can you tell us about our herbarium and where it came from?
Well, our herbarium consists of lots and lots of boxes like this, which are full of plant specimens. And if we look at this one, you can see that somebody's been collecting here species of roses. And what you find here is a series of records on the specimen showing who originally collected it and when, and then subsequent checks that have been made or research that's been carried out on these particular specimens. So in the corner of this one, you've got a note saying that it was originally collected in 1907.
Wow.
So that just gives you an idea of how old some of these specimens are. And then subsequently it has notes from 1961 and 1990 showing that people have been back to this specimen, they've researched it and they've matched it with species descriptions, for instance in books or in other herbaria. And we also have a little note here which links it to a collector called Augustin Lay, and he was a major amateur collector of plant specimens, and all of his specimens came into the herbarium as a group. And you find that there's a lot of different private collectors that are represented in these specimens. So in addition to all of these actual plant specimens, we have other material along with the herbarium which gives us an idea of how it's been used over time. This, for instance, is a poster that was made in 1916, and you can see how somebody has actually attached real specimens to this piece of card, and they've also used photographs as well to show these particular plants in their natural habitat. So this gives us a real sense of how these specimens were actually used in teaching of botany. This is something that was collected by a private individual, and we've got some tiny little specimens in here of things that he or she, we're not quite sure who owned this, has collected over time.
So 1907, that would lead back to the early days of the university?
It would indeed. So this herbarium was put together when the University of Birmingham was first founded in the early years of the 20th century, and they acquired or purchased a number of different collections from people like Augustin Lay and other collectors, and material was also donated to them.
So does Winterbourne itself have any links to this herbarium?
Well, yes, we recently discovered a very interesting link that goes right back to the very beginnings of the herbarium. Winterbourne, as you know, was built in 1904, and it was in the years around that period that the herbarium was being put together. And along with the herbarium, we've been cataloguing some correspondence that concerns the way it was put together. And we have a little letter here which concerns the fundraising for a particular collection of moss specimens that was put together by Mr. Horrell. And this was going to cost quite a lot of money to buy. And this particular fellow here, Mr. Russell, has been helping with raising money to buy this collection. And he lists at the end of the letter the people who have contributed to that fund. And we find a lot of very interesting Birmingham names there, including Mr. Neville Chamberlain, future Prime Minister. And a little bit further down the list we find Mrs. Nettlefold, who was the mistress of Winterbourne.
Lovely.
So we know that Margaret actually put some money towards purchasing material for the herbarium.
That's amazing.
And we actually have the objects that Margaret contributed to buying. Horrell collected a whole range of species of moss, and there are many, many boxes of Mr. Horrell's collection. And this is just one example of a page from that collection. And as you can see, the mosses are in little packets, and you can see from the labels on here that he exchanged specimens from other collectors and other botanical gardens across the world. So this is a very significant collection and was considered to be very important at the time. And along with it was a set of microscopic slides that Mr. Horrell had prepared, and we've also got boxes of these too. So it's lovely to think that Margaret directly helped to buy these amazing specimens for the collection.
They're wonderful, aren't
They're
they?
really beautiful objects, as well as being quite important in the history of botany.
Lovely, thank you very much. Are there any later connections?
Well, yes, there are. The herbarium was obviously used by the botany department over many, many years. And for a long time, the botany department was actually based right here at Winterbourne, in fact, in this very building. There were some very important research projects taking place at Winterbourne. We have lots of boxes, for instance, of the Solanaceae family of plants, which are potatoes. And we had two particular professors here, both of whom were experts on potato species and were trying to develop new disease-resistant strains of potato, and they collected lots of potato species from around the world. And here is a lovely photo of Professor Jack Hawkes in this building back in the 1960s, and he's holding one of his herbarium specimens of potato species.
That's wonderful,
So
isn't it?
herbarium specimens were being preserved and added to the herbarium right the way through until the 1980s.
Wonderful. So what are the future plans that you have for this herbarium?
Well, the herbarium is important in lots of different ways. It's obviously very important in terms of the history of botany, but it's also important as a social history document because we can learn so much from it and from the documents that go along with it about the way plants have been collected over time and the way botany has been taught and studied. And we can learn about the individuals who are involved in collecting a lot of this material. So in the future we want to put on an exhibition that will explore some of these themes and will enable people to actually come in and see some of these amazing specimens and some of the documentation that goes along with them.
That's wonderful, thank you very much. Watch this space, everybody.